Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Lebanon Utility Service Board for June 21st, 2023. Let the record show that all board members are present tonight, Les and Patterson, and that this meeting was properly advertised. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first thing we'd like to do is offer public comment now and again at the end of the meeting. Any public comment tonight? Don't see any at the moment, so we'll move on to the approval of our minutes from the June 7th, 2023 meeting. Any questions, changes, corrections? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve those.
I make a motion we approve the minutes for June the 7th.
Second. Motion made by Bill, seconded by Tim to approve the minutes from the June 7th meeting. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next action item tonight is the 2023 Electric GIS Assistance. It's a supplemental agreement. And Jeff Greeno will be addressing the board this evening. Hey, Jeff.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is a request for approval, a supplemental agreement, number one, for our 2023 Electric GIS Assistance from Butler, Fairmont, and Seifert. This supplemental agreement consists of an additional $8,000 to complete the 2023 GIS updates for our mapping geo database. The GIS helps us in many ways. It helps us on outages. We know where the lines are and equipment underground. It helps our locator in doing locates because it gives him a better idea where the lines go if he can't get a good reading on the locator. And it helps bring our database up to speed where it should be. So I would like to ask the board to approve the supplemental agreement number one for the 2023 Electric GIS Assistance for the amount of $8,000 with the overall not to exceed total amount to be $20,000, with all documents to be signed by General Manager Ed Baskell.
Hey, Jeff, I want to add something, and you can, I
Yes.
guess, comment on it, is that when we made this budget, we thought we were going to make it inside the $12,000, but when we realized we were close on the budget, we had some internal meetings, and then we met with Chris Milne and John Bleitner, who's in the audience, to answer questions, and just tried to do a breakdown and determine why we needed to change the budget. We determined that there was a lot of additional costs with converting data from NISC. They addressed the problem, and they with how they interact with NISC, and they think that they're going to be able to do it more cost effectively in the future. And I also want to point out that GIS is a really big time and cost savings for us, and there's going to be future agreements to upgrade our GIS status. Our GIS system is part of our asset management for getting grants and loans from the state. It's also very important as far as where the underground lines are for safety, as well as for just various construction projects we're doing. So I just want to kind of add that. It wasn't, we budgeted well, it's just that some things happened that were unplanned, and I just want to explain.
How does the GIS system help with the power outages? What's the details of that?
It's loaded on that NICS program, and like I can see from like my computer desk, when an outage goes out, it's all tied into one big program, and I can see when outages go out, and it helps not only for underground lines but overhead lines. It points out which direction they are, and it shows transformers and stuff like that. So it helps greatly, and more than just locating. There's several areas it assists us with.
Thank you.
You could also pull up an outage map and see where the outage is, where the lines are, and it helps our guys. They all have iPads where they can see more precisely where the outage is and what they need to do to fix it. So it's very helpful.
Are these funds, are these to continue to update our current system, or is this to add all the new electric that we're doing right now around the city for the various developments?
Actually, it's both. We're updating wasn't put in previously, and all the new stuff, the example Cedar Ridge, none of that's in there, and Josh McKay's been working on that, adding that in there, getting it all lined out in there on that program.
Okay.
Right, any other questions?
Do we
for
have
Jeff?
money in there for additional funding in the budget, or?
I may have to
So you
defer that question.
Peter and Paul.
budgeted specifically 12,000 for that project,
Yeah,
but he also budgeted another 10,000 for Butler Fairman for on-call services, and I don't know right now exactly how much of that's been used. But there is lots of other money in contractual services, so just depending upon who spends all of theirs or who doesn't, it could actually be covered. But it wasn't specifically budgeted for the 20,000, it was budgeted for 12.
so there is money in there to cover it.
There is money in there currently to cover it.
Okay.
Right, any other questions for Jeff? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the supplemental agreement number 1 for the 2023 electric GIS assistance for the amount of $8,000, making the overall number not to exceed $20,000, with all documents to be signed by General Manager Ed Basquill.
Second?
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Bill, to approve the supplement agreement number 1 for the 2023 electric GIS assistance in the amount of $8,000 with an overall amount not to exceed $20,000. All documents signed by our general manager. Any additional discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is the Indianapolis Avenue Southeast Loop easement acquisition, and this is an action item as well, and our legal counsel, Jeff Jacob, is going to address the board on this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am pleased to report that in front of you, or included in your board packets, are the final two pieces needed for the acquisition of the southeast electrical loop in terms of the easement acquisition. The first piece, and I'm handling these instead of Mr. Greeno, because these became a little more challenging, were pulled out of the normal land acquisition process and turned over to me directly. Both parties whom deferred to or engaged counsel to address the issue. The first piece is the Markle Farms parcel, and as noted in the suggested motion, we've agreed on the appraised value amount of $17,000, and I'm asking for the board to authorize the approval of the expenditure of the
Should that motion include the crop agreement too?
Well, so the crop agreement is part of the necessary documents, is the way I sort of looked at it, but we can include that if the board so chooses. It's something that we would, frankly, any crops that we would damage, we would include that, and it's usually a provision.
But that would exceed the 17,000, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So, Aaron, I think that's a great point, but if we want to include the offer to purchase the easement for the 17,000, authorize Mr. Basquill to sign all necessary documents, subject to or including the crop damage agreement, that would be fantastic. So, just as a couple of points on this was a little bit more challenging piece, and we have included at the council's request, their council's request, the crop damage agreement, as Aaron has noted. If there are no questions on the Markle Farms piece, I'd like to jump to the county piece next, that also had a little bit of a complication to it. The county parcel, as you will note, we've talked about the route for this line. The county's parcel is very oddly shaped. In your packets, you saw that there was a map with a zoomed-in section. That piece may be marketed and sold by the county at some point, and frankly, our initial route was going to cause access problems to that piece, which is limited only through that little tongue, if you will, on the southwest side of the parcel. So in talking to the county and the commissioners, Mr. Greeno and Josh McKay came up with an alternative route where we were able to bore across the road and access a utility pole. There was some additional cost in that. The utility will see some benefit in that it's going to have some additional equipment and it's mitigating its exposure on that corner. So frankly, the county and utility split the difference on some of that approximate cost. So what I'm asking for is the approval to purchase this easement for $20,000. That included a donation portion because the parcel appraised for more than $20,000. The commissioners kicked in some of the funds back in order to accommodate the rerouting across the road and addressing the access issue. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
Sounds like that was good cooperation between both parties.
It was. We did sit down and work through what their problems were, and we were able to continue the route, and took a little longer, but yes, absolutely. I applaud the commissioners for listening to our needs, and Mr. Greeno and Mr. Kay doing likewise to the commissioners.
All right, so it looks like we have a couple parts here. The first part is the 17,000 with Markle Farms, and that will also include a portion of, that motion will also include the crop damage agreement, correct?
Please? Sure. Yes, please.
All right, so any other questions on that portion before we entertain a motion? Not, I'll do so now.
I move to approve the offer to purchase the easement from Markel Farms in the amount of $17,000 and authorize Ed Basquill to sign all necessary documents subject to final legal review, including the crop damage agreement.
Second.
Motion made by Aaron, seconded by Bill, to approve the easement purchase from Markle Farms in the amount of $17,000 with general manager signing documents. This also includes the crop damage agreement. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so now we'll jump to the Boone County Commissioner purchase of that easement in the amount of $20,000. Any other discussion, questions on that item before we entertain a motion? Not, I'll entertain one now.
I move to approve the offer to purchase the easement from Boone County Commissioners in the amount of $20,000 and authorize Ed Basquill to sign all necessary documents subject to final legal review.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Tim, to approve the offer to purchase the easement from the Boone County Commissioners in the amount of $20,000 with Ed Basquill signing all necessary documents and subject to final legal review. Any additional questions or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Jeff, thank you, board. Next item is an action item as well. It's the Noble Street Housing Addition conduit installation. It's an action item, and Jeff Greeno is still hanging out at the podium. Hey, Jeff.
Hi. This is a request for approval to have Buried Incorporated install our electric conduit and equipment for the Noble Street Development Housing Addition. This addition is located on the corner of Noble Street and Patterson. It's back along the railroad tracks there. It will consist of 54 houses. for this project. So basically, I would like to ask the board to approve having Barriott Incorporated install the electrical conduit and equipment for the Noble Street Development Housing Addition with a not-to-exceed amount of $32,509, with all documents to be signed by General Manager Ed Baskell. Anybody have any questions?
I do, please. I looked at the list of what will be included in the scope of work. Total trenching footage of 2,295 feet, a depth of 36 to 42 inches, installation of 1,055 feet of 2-inch continuous inner duct, installation of 1,240 feet of 3-inch continuous inner duct, 9 fiberglass single-phase transformer box pads, 1 single-phase sectionalizing cabinet, 26 secondary pedestals, and information about 2 streetlight locations. What part of this expense is being paid by the developer?
Currently, none of it.
And that's my understanding also. And the transformers, that's going to be, the 9 transformers that are going to be put on the pads, will the developer be paying for that?
No.
About how much would those transformers cost?
Probably roughly, at the last time we bought that size transformer, it'd be around $35,000
$35,000 for the 3?
for the 9 transformers.
For the 9, I'm sorry, for the
Yeah,
9 transformers?
9, yes.
Okay, so what I'm getting at here is that existing ratepayers have subsidized developers and their residential developers because I think that it was an enticement for developers to build homes in our area that for, well, several decades really, that we had modest home growth, and that it may have made sense to incentivize builders to come here. There's some remarkable projects planned and on the books and the subject of completed conceptual plans that include literally hundreds and thousands of new homes. And, right now, we have, in the current 2023 budget, we have $300,000 budgeted for new and replacement transformers, and we have $300,000 budgeted for service to new facilities. And I noticed that in subsequent years, this budget amount actually goes down for some reason, while we anticipate the number of residential homes going up. Do you know, Mr. Greeno, if the surrounding localities give residential developers free of charge this amount of electric infrastructure?
Jeff, if you let me butt in here a little bit, is transformers costs are going up, but right now, the way our current rate structure is built, the last time we had a rate increase, which I believe was 2013, they looked at the budget items that we gave to the IURC, and transformer costs were built in, and our rates were to support that, because there's not an availability fee for transformers, and they also looked at what growth was going to be. Now, since we haven't had a rate increase since 2013, our rates probably don't support those transformers, and there might be another way to do a rate structure on that, but we would have to do a rate study first, because a lot of our rates might be out of date. One reason we like to study rates is frequently is when you don't do a rate change in many years, there might be a big adjustment. So there are communities in the area that have changed their rates to reflect the developer providing the transformer, and that's something the board could look at doing in 2024. But for right now, and Sandra could probably address this better than me, our rates say that have terms and conditions that say what we can provide and what we can't. So So there's some other communities, I want to say Crawfordsville is looking to do something with transformers. And Jeff, do you know of any communities, to answer Aaron's question, that have made a change to their rates on transformers?
Most all the surrounding municipals have. I don't know all the terms that they have, but the Frankfurt, Crawfordsville, the RMCs, they all charge for most everything for housing additions.
Are they in the IURC, those other communities, or?
Frankfurt is, I do believe. I'm not sure on Crawfordsville.
The reason I brought this up is that the current ratepayers, I think this is an ongoing and escalating expense that is not proper for our current ratepayers to pay, and that in the future, I hope that we would fall in line with the surrounding communities where developers would pay for this, and of course that cost would be passed on in individual homeowners for a slightly increased, and increased to some amount, a home amount purchase, but I think that's be a reasonable pass-through to join our community. So I wanted just to have a preliminary discussion to point out that I think this is something that really needs attention.
That's a great discussion, but in terms of this current project, this is how we have to do it by our terms and conditions, but I think the board authorized Sandra and Baker Tilly to start putting together a scope on a comprehensive financial plan, and that would be one of the inputs to look at that.
Well, I think what's nice is we now have precedent in other communities for these activities. We've been asking for a long time about electric, about what we can do because of our discussions on availability fees for water and wastewater. So it's nice to know that there's precedent. If we are bound now, then we need, at some point, we'll begin the conversations about what do we need to do with our rate structure to potentially offload some of this expense away from the current ratepayers and onto the developers.
Okay, good points. Any other questions for Jeff or Ed on this specific action item before we entertain a motion? All right, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve Barriott Incorporated to install the electrical conduit and equipment for the Noble Street Development Housing Addition with a not-to-exceed amount of $32,509, with all documents to be signed by General Manager Ed Baskell.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Aaron to approve Barriott to install the electrical conduit and equipment for the Noble Street Development Housing Addition. This has a not-to-exceed amount of $32,509, being signed by our General Manager, Ed Baskell. Any additional discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, Jeff, appreciate it. Next item is an information item. It's a development update by our General Manager for the board.
Yeah, I will, with the other visual problems, I need, I guess, John Leitner's assistance, see if he can plug in his computer. Really, basically a question and answer session. Quarterly, we've been presenting the board with a map and a table that's been in your board packet as far as what's going on with development. And big picture and retrospective, I want to say from 2015 to 2017, but before I arrived, not that it was my fault or anything, we didn't have any plats approved in the city. And TAC meetings were rare. And every number that you see on this list of the, and if you could share, every number you see, that represents something that went to a TAC meeting, and not just a conceptual meeting, but something that got to the point where it's on the map. And this is what you're looking at is the map from 329, the last one we presented to you. And you can see 621, this is what's happened since. And this represents probably in 2023, 1,800 additional EDUs proposed. So we're still growing. And it seems like the Fieldhouse project and the LEAP is acting like this big development magnet, drawing things in. And we have John Leitner and BFNS and our staff at every TAC meeting documenting things, making sure things get done the right way. And if Jonathan can show the next slide with the table on it. And this is a lot of information all at once, but this is the best way we could come up with to present it. We got the sanitary EDUs, which are approximately the same as the water EDUs.
I want to interject here. We've had this discussion before, Ed, at this table. They're not approximately the same as the water EDUs. I'm going to use Eli Lilly as an example. Now, Eli Lilly will use 864,000 of gallons per day on average, with a peak usage of 1.35 million gallons per day. And when you use that water usage, it equated to 1,728 water EDUs and 2,788 wastewater EDUs. Nowhere near the same. So what I would like to see in future reports, and by the way, I attended a city council work session where the planning department presented information about developments, and I was really pleased to see that this information coincided with what Ben presented, and actually this is in a better form than what Ben permitted. So I want to congratulate you on the completeness of what's in front of us. But I would like to see that column added where the water EDUs are presented. And I would also like to see somewhere in a note on this page about the total EDUs, water and wastewater available, and how many are currently accounted for. So to me, those would be three more important items of information added to the excellent information you provide here.
Okay, we'll do what we can on that. I'd say, John, maybe you could answer this better than me. Are the EDUs different for projects other than the Eli Lilly, or is it like a calculation, or?
I mean, Aaron's not wrong when you take it per gallon. You know, you divide by 310 to get to wastewater, you divide by 500 to get to water, so they are going to be different. But in this case, with this high-level planning, we just don't know. We don't have an exact gallon per day for any of these developments that we have presented. We have a general idea of what they're going to be. On the residential side, one EDU is one EDU. You know, every house is one EDU, so it's
Water and wastewater?
Water and wastewater.
Right.
They're a single house, so those are going to be pretty simple. When you get into some of these businesses, I mean, we're kind of,
The
calculation
John,
is different, right?
I understand the difficulties in being absolutely precise, but
well, these are definitely not.
the best estimates at the moment are very helpful to us. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, these should be taken with a grain of salt. That
What,
some of
a
them,
grain of salt?
correct. Some of them are best engineering guesses on what is being proposed as a concept that could be years out from actually being
Right.
developed. So that's what I'm saying as far as with a grain of salt. A lot of these are not exact numbers, and I would say actually 95% of them are not exact numbers.
Right.
They're our best guess. Even the number of houses per development is, I mean, you'll see a lot of them are 500 or
Right.
700. It's really a house per acre or some sort of close calculation. So it's meant to give a snapshot of what we think we're about at, not exactly where we're at.
Like, John, let me interject. At like a poster child for what you're talking about is the water for development, because I want to say 2 years ago we had it being the same number of EDUs as it is right now, and we didn't really have a plan yet. And as I recall, they're still having a delay. They have one thing platted that I want to say is 700 EDUs, but we're carrying the 4,775 on there because that's what the concept is for the ultimate build-out. But that may change, and it might be,
So at what stage do we have a definitive difference? Because the Crow property here shows 700. Well, they're going to have more than 700 residential units, and they're also going to have light commercial. At what point do we understand that it's 700 housing, and then if the calculation changes, to say that?
Really, the time that you can lock it in is when you have a capacity allocation form and you've paid your availability fees. Up until that
Okay.
time, it's all a concept, because what you just said there, that's the first I would have heard that that's a different number than 700. So we're getting kind of snapshot, this is what's coming through TAC or what's being presented in concept form.
Sometimes the availability fees are paid at the primary plat, and sometimes they're paid at the secondary plat, right?
Well,
Isn't that right?
how it's set up in the ordinance, it would be on a residential, it's paid at the secondary plat.
Okay.
On a commercial property, it's paid at the development plan, which is more like a primary plat.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it's, even the timing's different as you're looking at this.
And John, if I might interject, just to echo sort of the speculative nature, when we look at the patch development project, that is at such a conceptual phase in terms of they haven't gone through the rezoning yet. It is very conceptual right now in terms of what uses will be there, and then when you talk about a spec project, you have no idea what kind of user is going to show up there in a spec building and what kind of consumption of water or sanitary they will have. So we just don't know, and to echo John's point, it's not locked in until they come in and reserve that capacity by paying for it. So it's becoming more and more of a tighter system where developers are going to need to be more precise and get in and pay to lock in their capacity, rather than just assuming, as we've seen in the business park, that capacity will always be there. So, I think this is a great concept and model. I think John's continued warnings of, hey, we don't really know. You could have a huge food producer go into the patch development project and use 3 times that capacity. We just don't know what the users are going to be.
But the challenge is, once we know, I think Aaron's request, and I would support that, is let us have a picture.
Lock it in, absolutely.
Let us have a picture. Because we know now with Lilly, that's how we were able to do a calculation, all right? And I don't know what, again, if that's the availability fee point, I don't know what we need to, but let's see that picture, because then it begins to add up with, here's the EDUs that have been paid for and that are now reserved in the sewer plant. What do we have left? Type of thing. And I think that's the visible that I heard Aaron asking for, that I would very much appreciate also.
All right, we'll
And I do appreciate these quarterly updates. We ask you to do that, and you've done that conscientiously, and I appreciate it.
yeah, and I guess I need to shout out to my team, that includes John Leitner and Ryan and Matt Hutton, who do the heavy lifting on going to the TAC meetings and collecting this information. And it's speculative, but we'd rather report what we know than just say we don't know. So we're just pretty good document.
All right.
Any other questions?
Got it.
Thank you, John.
Keep at it.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Thanks, John. Next item we have is the wastewater treatment plant sleeves, action item, and Ed will address the board here.
Yeah, I'm the substitute teacher for Ryan Ottinger, who's on vacation, and I got Tony Hunt, who's in the, Tony Green, I'm sorry. Sorry, Tony. Tony Green, who's in the audience, who can answer questions, or correct me where I fall here. But you may remember, we had a working session the last time we met, because we have UV, or ultraviolet, disinfection for the wastewater plant. Since we did the upgrade, we converted it from bleach to UV disinfection. One of the interesting things about the preventive maintenance on disinfection systems is they're very dependent on the water quality coming out and the specific water quality of your plant. So as far as when you replace the sleeves and when you replace the light bulbs, you can't just say it's this many hours or this many years or this much time. And then you throw in the curveball of our large periods of I&I where it has a lot more flow going past it, and you have the hardness of our water. So we kind of got thrown for a loop when all of our UV bulbs were starting to dull, and also the sleeves were dirty, and
The what's were dirty?
the sleeves. The
sleeves, okay.
These sleeves that go over the bulbs to protect them. So, they weren't getting a good enough kill, and we wanted to make sure we stayed in compliance. So Ryan came to the working session, and I'd recommend it, and we talked about an emergency repair where we didn't bring it to the board yet, and he had a quote at that point, I want to say $20,000, but we knew it wasn't all the way accurate because we hadn't taken it all the way through our review process. In the review process, they found that it's a little bit more than that. It's $32,509, and this is a retroactive approval. The work's already in progress, and
So the work is not completed yet?
It is not.
Would you come up to the lectern, please?
Aaron, the sleeves are on order, but it's a process. Everything comes from overseas for all this equipment that we have at the wastewater plant. So their ship date is at the end of June,
Okay.
roughly the end of June.
So we're pretty darn sure that this is going to fix a problem?
It is going to fix this problem. The UV bulbs are not necessarily a problem, but they have an hours basis to them. So we're getting to the top of probably about 20 bulbs out of the 60 that are hitting their peak also. I don't want to change those yet. Number one, we are passing right now with IDEM. IDEM is fully aware of what's going on at our plant. They're fully understanding, and they know we're working towards a solution. But the bulbs, I don't want to replace these 20, I'm going to use the 20, it could be a little more, a little less. I don't want to replace those until we get these new sleeves here. That will tell us the intensity through that water after we get these new sleeves on. So it's, and to kind of support Ed's take on that was, when we talk about the hardness of the water, we all know that the city drinking water is hard here. It is in Indiana in general. But when I say the hardness of the water is causing some of these issues, it's from the industries. The hardness scale of the water that's at the plant itself, after it's been through industry, is significantly harder than what our drinking water is. It also has surface tension that is almost impossible to cut through. So I have two ideas that we're currently working on. Number one, get the sleeves in, replace the sleeves. And that's clearly going to make a huge difference. I can't guarantee you that it's going to just be the end-all, be-all this year, but I think it will be. I'm pretty confident in that. But going forward, I'm working with he's a chemical consultant, looking to possibly put maybe sulfuric acid or some ammonium sulfate at the headworks of the plant. It'd be a very small dose. It's very minimal money, but it would soften and cut through that surface tension. And it would also provide some biological help on the back end for me. And if we soften this water and clear that up just slightly, we might not even ever have this issue again. I don't know that for sure, but that's something moving forward.
Yeah, Tony, and we can talk some more. You're also the pretreatment coordinator, so you would know that you could also regulate hardness if it becomes an issue for you.
Yep.
There are industries, and I should tell the board, and I'm sure you know this, but part of the reasons why industry gives you harder water is they might have boiler blowdowns, which is going to concentrate calcium. They might have cooling tower blowdowns, cooling systems, where they're going to pretty much evaporate water and leave solid, dissolved solids in them. So you could regulate that. You could make them take their boiler blowdown to their own pretreatment. There's many things we can do depending on the scope of the problem. So,
Sure.
But we're just getting started on it,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you'll figure it out. I got faith in you.
We're trying to work towards the quickest solution right now, and then in the end here, it will be a pretreatment issue going forward as soon as we get the immediate fixed. And
But also we have their treatment program for the cooling tower. It could be they're putting some phosphonate in there or something that's messing with your
We
treatment.
we also know that, you know, there's some chemicals that interact with each other from multiple plants as they come together, and they create different problems for us. So I think there's a lot of that going on personally, but that's a bigger discussion for a different day.
Tony, about how long ago did we go to this UV system? Approximately, how many years?
It was right when we did the renovation, right when I got here,
I
so
think we-
2019, so.
Okay.
2020, I think, is when we put it online, I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
This is the first time we will have replaced the sleeves and potentially looking at the bulbs.
Yeah, and just to be clear to everyone, I've spoke to several representatives with Xylem Wedeco, which is the manufacturer, and one of their lab tech guys. And he did say that was the worst hardness deposits that he's seen on sleeves in the 30 years he's been doing this. And that our sleeves, on the minimum, should probably be more towards that 7 to 10 year lifespan. And some people see up to 20 years. But the people that see up to 20 years, they have no industry. It's residential communities only. So we're a little short
Good
on
learning.
that.
It's a good learning point, though.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's a moving target too, though, because as I remember,
it's-
Ken's Foods anaerobic digester didn't come online till
That's correct.
late in 2020, right?
Yep,
So, so you were seeing a lot of problems from Ken's Foods that may
Sure.
that may really relate to this too.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure there's some other problems out there
Yep.
we don't know of.
All right.
All right, thanks, Tony. Good information. Anybody have any questions for Tony or Ed or on this?
Appreciate the in-depth discussion.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
I move to retroactively approve in accordance with IC 36-1-4-16, ratification of actions of officers or employees, the purchase and replacement of quartz sleeves for the UV disinfection system at the wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $32,541.40.
Second?
Motion made by Tim, seconded by Aaron to retroactively approve this accordance for the replacement of the quartz sleeves of the UV disinfection system at the wastewater treatment plant in the amount of $32,541.40. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you, guys. Next item is the approval of our claims, payrolls, and transfers from January 21st, 2023. Everyone had a chance to review those items, and if so, I'd entertain a motion to approve if there are no questions or discussion.
I move to approve claims payroll transfers dated June 21st, 2023, in the amount of $1,089,084.03 for claims and payroll, and $618,944.24 for transfers.
Second.
Motion made by Bill, seconded by Tim to approve the claims, payrolls, transfers dated June 21st, 2023. Any additional discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, next item is any other business for the board or from the board tonight? Anyone have anything?
I do have one reminder. I recalled hearing some discussion about upcoming meetings and proposed dates.
Yes,
Upcoming
we-
meetings, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we have, the next scheduled meeting is the 5th of July, which we have considered bumping back a week to the 12th to get it away from the July 4th holiday, be a little more convenient. So I know that would require a motion, correct, and approval. If we do that, I think it probably makes sense because we can still meet twice in July. And the August meetings would not be impacted, so unless someone has a,
Just want to make sure the room's available, it doesn't conflict with the
yeah,
city
we'll
meeting, so.
check with the room, and if it's available, then we can entertain a motion based on the availability of the room and go ahead and change it to the 12th unless someone has a conflict on the 12th.
Nope.
Then would you leave the meeting on the 19th or push that to the 26th?
Well, I was talking with Danny about that. If we don't have any urgencies, we may not need to meet 1 week later. We could bump it back to the 26th unless there's business that we had to conduct a week later, so. So I guess we'd have to have a motion to move that meeting as well if we do, but we can address that at the next meeting, right?
Sure.
I asked our council to please suggest a motion summarizing all of what was discussed.
Yeah, how about this? I would suggest a motion changing the next meeting date from July 5th to July 12th at the regular scheduled time of 5 PM.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Motion by Tim, second by Bill to approve the change of our next meeting from July 5th to July 12th, pending room availability. Any questions on that? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, any other business for the board tonight or from any board members? I don't see any public comment in person. Anything come across your desk, Ed, that you're aware of?
No public comments, no.
Okay. All right, then we'll plan for the next meeting to be on the 12th of July, 5 PM. Anyone have anything else before we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Tim, seconded by everyone to adjourn.
Right.
I'll pick Tim, or I'll pick Aaron tonight. He's excited to get out of here. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone.